Welcome into Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. I'm Megan Payton. We've got our Week 17 Mailbag show coming up. But I first ask you guys, do you want a shout out on Seahawks Today? I'm going to tell you later on in this video how you can be featured on our show. Go to the comments right now, type Y for yes or type N for no if you do not want to be featured on our show. Okay, as I said, we are doing our Mailbag show, Week 17. This is where, if you're new here, you guys ask us questions throughout the week. We pick our favorite ones, and then, of course, we answer them. You guys agree, disagree with what our thoughts are. Of course, right now, Seahawks fans not feeling so great as they are officially eliminated from the playoffs, but there's no reason why we cannot talk offseason, talk changes, trade rumors, all of that to come. So let's get into it. Our first question is coming from Tyson Stanger. He says, quarterback shopping if Russell leaves. So we expect this to be a topic that gets brought up during the offseason, of course, leading up to 2022. Will Russell Wilson remain in Seattle, or is he going to end up somewhere else? Of course, we do not know the answer to this, but I do want one thing to be pointed out. I think a lot of times we talk about, hey, where does Russell want to go? Is he going to go here, there? You have to remember, the Seahawks are not obligated to trade him. Russell Wilson is under contract, and they could easily say, now you're staying here in Seattle. We are not going to trade you. Now, I don't know if the Seahawks would necessarily want to keep him in Seattle if he didn't want to be there. We'll see how the trade rumors kind of wind up, kind of get crazy as the season winds down, but we will talk about the best options if Russell Wilson is no longer in Seattle. They've got three options. You can either draft a guy in this 2022 NFL draft, you can trade for a guy, or sign someone in free agency. We're going to talk draft and trades because really there's no quarterback that I would want the Seahawks to sign, I'd say, unless we're talking about some of the main guys, which I will point out a couple. But first, let's talk draft. The top 5 quarterback prospects in this year's draft. We've got Matt Corral of Ole Miss, Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Carson Strong, and Sam Howell. So these are the 5 guys that we would expect Seattle to be looking for if Russell were to leave. Now, before you say, wait, the Seahawks don't have a first-round pick, I understand that. But if the Seahawks give up Russell Wilson, without a question, they will have a first-round draft pick, and then they would have the opportunity to probably get one of these guys. Now, before we talk about guys they could trade for or guys that they could sign in free agency, I do want your initial thoughts. Go to the comments right now. Let me know, who would you want to replace Russell Wilson? This is our pinned comment for today's show. So if you get the ad break, now's the time. Fight it out. Let me know who you want replacing Russ. All right, one guy that I have as an option for Seattle is Kirk Cousins. Now, before you get upset and say, why would we want Kirk Cousins in Seattle? Kirk Cousins, I still think, has potential. Now, in 2021, he's had a 66.4 completion percentage, 3,971 yards, 30 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. I think his time is coming to an end in Minnesota. I think that they've kind of are going to go a different route. That's my early thoughts on Kirk Cousins. So Seattle could be a landing spot for Cousins. I'm not saying that he's a fantastic quarterback that is at the level of Russell Wilson, but I think that he could still develop more. And if they're keeping Shane Waldron, maybe he can help out, develop Cousins into the quarterback that they want to see out of him. I'm just throwing it out as an option. They would also probably get a lot more in return. They'd still end up with some draft picks if they did a Russell Wilson. Maybe Minnesota trades for Russell Wilson. Who knows what that is, but Kirk Cousins is an option. Our next option is a kind of interesting topic that we might have forgotten about, but DeShaun Watson. DeShaun Watson still dealing with a lot of criminal investigations, multiple sexual assault charges. He has not played at all in 2021. We don't know what's going to happen. We did hear from PFT that they said that this criminal investigation should be wrapping up by the end of January. So is it, realistic for Watson to end up on another team and actually play in the NFL? I don't know. This is where, it's crazy that we didn't see him at all this year. I think that there's a reason why Houston obviously didn't play him, but there's a lot going on that a lot of teams don't want to get caught up in, a lot of issues. It hasn't been resolved yet. If it does get resolved, is that a positive thing, a negative thing? What happens? Obviously, the civil cases will still be up for grabs. There's a lot of drama surrounding DeShaun Watson, but he's a great quarterback. We cannot deny that. Obviously, did not see him this year, but in 2020, he had a 70.2 completion percentage, 4,823 yards, 33 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. There's no doubting that DeShaun Watson is a dominant quarterback in the NFL. The problem is, if this ends up being accurate, if DeShaun Watson is found guilty, there's no way he is ending up back in the NFL. So it's definitely a case that is a risky case that you don't necessarily want to bring onto your team unless you know that it's completely resolved. All right, I've got another guy for you guys, another trade that I understand you guys are going to get mad at me for this one, but Tyler Huntley, Ravens backup quarterback, a trade for him. Now, he's only started in 2 games this year, obviously, with Lamar Jackson out with injury. But hear me out. He had a 68.8 completion percentage at the average of those 2 games, 743 yards, 5 total touchdowns, 3 passing, 2 rushing, and 1 interception. Now, Tyler Huntley, I think he has a ton of potential. He's young. He's 23 years old. I think he is someone that absolutely could be a starting quarterback in this league. It would obviously take some development. But if you look at the Seahawks options, meaning if they don't have Russell Wilson, do you want to take an older guy that's going to maybe retire? We've seen what he can do. You could draft a guy, but this draft class isn't as fantastic as we've seen in past years. Maybe Tyler Huntley's someone that is kind of the underdog guy that you can develop, make a great quarterback out of. Random thought there, but I do think that that would be a unique option for Seattle. Now, of course, we have to talk about a long shot option. This would be a long shot free agent option, which would be Aaron Rodgers. Of course, between him and Russell Wilson, there's going to be a lot of news in the offseason on where both of those guys are going to end up. Aaron Rodgers obviously had his issues in Green Bay. We don't know if he is going to re-sign with the Packers, but maybe Aaron Rodgers would want to join the Seattle Seahawks. So far in 2021, a 68 completion percentage, 3,689 yards, 33 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Now, Rodgers would be someone that's obviously a fantastic quarterback in this league, but he's getting older. You're not going to sign him to a 5-year deal. This is someone you bring on. I like the idea, honestly, of maybe the Seahawks having a guy like Rodgers for a year or 2, maybe, while you develop a younger guy. Because right now, if they were to lose Russell Wilson after this year, they've got Geno Smith, who we've seen do well as a backup. I don't think he's a starter in the NFL. So Rodgers is a long shot. If he, does not end up back in Green Bay, he's going to have a lot of options. I don't know if he's going to Seattle, but you've got to throw it out there. All right, we're getting back to our other questions, but that's the Russell Wilson drama. Of course, there's going to be more of that as the year winds down and as we get into the offseason. But next question coming in from Pineapple. Do the Seahawks keep Pete Carroll or do they move on? I'm going to answer this question, but first, this is the reason why you subscribe to Seahawks Today, because we keep you guys updated on all of the rumors going around Seattle, the Pete Carroll rumors, the Russell Wilson rumors, and I told you guys if you do want a shout out on Seahawks Today, here's how you can get it. Are you new to Seahawks Today? Go and subscribe to our channel, then go to the comments and type new. We will shout you out on our next Seahawks Today video. All right, back to the Pete Carroll drama. I really don't know if he is going to end up back in Seattle or not. We've talked about him already before, and I think that you would be crazy to not admit that Pete Carroll has been a successful coach in this league. Yes, he's 70 years old, so is his time coming to an end? Maybe, but he's been the coach 2010 through 2021. His overall record is 117 wins, 73 losses, and 1 tie. In 2021, his worst record of his NFL career, 5 wins, 10 losses. Now, I don't think one bad season means that you need to resort to firing a guy like this. And I've said this before, Pete Carroll's not getting fired. I will stand by that. There is no way the Seahawks organization is going to let him go publicly, at least. Now, maybe there's a situation where they talk about retirement. Pete Carroll's not going to another team. He's 70 years old. He's going to end in Seattle. This could be his last year, but I don't think it's going to end in a traditional firing case. It would be something like him retiring, but he could easily come back to Seattle. I think that that's not a crazy thought. And he mentioned he doesn't think that there needs to be a full rebuild as they look into 2022, just certain things that they need to change. But Pete Carroll is questionable, I guess, for his 2022 return. Now, one thing I do want to tell you guys about, if you're a true Seahawks fan, you're still going to wear the Seahawks gear, and there's a great deal going on over at Fanatics. If you go to chatsports.com/12combo, you can get a licensed Seahawks t-shirt and hat for $20. That's $20 altogether. It is 50% off. Think of it like this: $10 for a shirt and $10 for a Seahawks hat. It's licensed gear. These are running out quick. This is the best, I'd say, the best Seahawks gear sale that I have seen. So that's why I wanted to tell you guys about this. $20. Go to chatsports.com/12combo and get some cool Seahawks gear to rep, even though you're upset with your Seahawks season. All right, next question coming in from Zane Martin. Does Seattle need to get a rush defensive tackle? Green is the heaviest at 275 out of all the defensive ends. Yes, it's definitely worth a draft pick. And by the way, we did a whole draft segment on a couple days ago on our show, so I'll put that in the description. But this is, again, why you subscribe to our channel, because we talk about all these things here at Chat Sports. But I do think that the Seahawks need to get a rush defensive tackle. That is important. So I'm listing a couple guys that would be ideal. Now, the first guy, before you get upset, Jordan Davis. He is clearly the best defensive tackle in this year's draft. He is projected to go, I'd say, at least top 10. So the Seahawks are not getting Jordan Davis unless they end up in a situation with a first-round pick because of a Russell Wilson trade or whatever else. But Jordan Davis would be ideal. This guy's massive. He's 330 pounds. And, I mean, he can essentially do anything. That's why he's so great. Coming out of Georgia, 6'6". In 2021, he had 28 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. If the Seahawks could somehow end up getting him, it would clearly be worth the pick, in my opinion. Unfortunately, a lot would have to happen for the Seahawks to end up in a situation where they could draft Jordan Davis. So another guy, I did mention this on our draft show, that I think is more realistic is Perion Winfrey out of Oklahoma. Now, he's 6'4", 298 pounds. He's a little bit more raw, has a little bit more development to do, but I think that he could be a really good guy in the league. He's projected to go first or second round, so he could be available by the time the Seahawks have their second round pick. In 2021, pretty good year. 23 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. Now, go to our video if you want to hear more draft candidates, my opinion on who the Seahawks should draft. But I will ask you guys one question before we move on. What position should the Seahawks focus on coming up in the 2022 NFL Draft? All right, guys, as I said, we have this in our description. This is the Seahawks draft targets. Make sure you go check this out. Again, turn your notifications on so you don't miss out on videos like this. I'm not going to tell you every time we do a video about something on a new video, so we have it here in the descriptions, but we go through different people that the Seahawks should consider drafting in 2022. All right, last question we have is still revolving defensive tackles. Batman Fan 20 Batman says, Seahawks must sign Geno Atkins. Now, we talked a lot about Geno Atkins, especially earlier in the season, maybe a little bit kind of mid-season. Would Geno Atkins have been a guy that the Seahawks should bring on, kind of help freshen up that defensive line, give a guy that, has had a lot of experience in this league, come in, take on a leadership role? I think that it could have been a good option, earlier on in the season. Now, my opinion is, sure, they could go ahead and sign Geno Atkins, but he's not going to be worth much money. Like, I would say if you're going to go ahead and get Atkins, he should be getting really the vet minimum. He's getting older. He's not going to be someone that really is going to have a ton of impact on this Seahawks defense team. I think that he could provide a lot of leadership to some of these younger guys, but it wouldn't be someone that I'd say is such a priority. I thought so maybe earlier on, but as we look into 2022, I think we're looking at younger guys. We want to rebuild. And so Geno Atkins is someone I'd bring on, but not for much.